Hello, welcome, and a happy Janmashtami to everybody. I know it's Krishna Janma, and millions of people around the world, in the country and around the world, celebrate this festive occasion. I know ISKCON every year does a huge celebration, but because of this situation that we are in, ISKCON has decided to go viral with their Janmashtami celebrations. And as part of that celebration, we are having this discussion today. It's called Secrets of ISKCON Kitchen. And the minute I introduce this panel, you're going to understand that this panel discussion today is going to be about food, food, and more food. So on that note, if I may welcome the panel, I'm going to start off with Shri Chanchalapathi Dasa. Now, he's the Senior VP ISKCON-Bangalore and also the Vice Chairman of one of the country's greatest NGOs, Akshaya Patra. Then after that, we're joined by Chef Sanjeev Kapoor. Now, the biodata says food entrepreneur and author, but we know that he's so much more. He's one of the first big names of food in Indian television. He's a pioneer, and my God, what can I say about you? How many books? 500, 700 books you've written at least by now?
No, let's not get there.
We won't
let's
get
focus
there.
on today's session.
Yeah. Also joining us is somebody who I should have visited many years ago for advice is Rujuta Diwekar, India's leading nutritionist expert. And she's going to talk as well about food. And after that, I'm going to go for some private sessions with her. Okay. And finally, since we are talking ISKCON, since we are talking Krishna consciousness, we're talking food, which is Sattvic. We've got Anushruthi, who's a food writer, an expert on Sattvic food, and a nutrition advisor. So, shall we kick off this discussion with your permission, Prabhuji?
Yes, most well.
Now, I know we're going to have a fairly serious discussion on all the good that Akshaya Patra does. I know we're going to talk about food that is good for us, but I wanted to start a little bit with you, Prabhuji, on Krishna and his association with food. I mean, of most deities and gods that we talk about, when you talk about Krishna, you think of butter, you think of makhan, and you think of food. So why don't we start off with you, sir, and talk a little bit about Krishna and food?
Happily. Yes, food is a very big part of bhakti, Krishna bhakti, and a very big part of ISKCON too. And when Srila Prabhupada was reviving and transplanting Indian culture around the world, while he introduced deity worship and kirtans and bhajans, another important part of bhakti tradition is prasadam, food. And not just food, sanctified food. And Srila Prabhupada introduced this aspect too in ISKCON. And that's how food is a big part of ISKCON. In the very early days, some of you who are familiar with Srila Prabhupada's life, at the age of 70, for the first time he went from India to America because his guru had ordered him that he should spread Krishna bhakti around the world. And the temple that he had set up, a very humble temple in New York, in a storefront. One of the important things that he was doing, apart from the bhajans and the kirtans and the classes that he was giving, was food. And Prabhupada himself was personally an excellent cook, and he would cook very, very delicious food, I'm told, and he would serve them to all those students, Western students, American students, boys and girls who were coming to him. And that is how, and later when ISKCON became big, he introduced food and food distribution. And that's how Akshaya Patra was born in ISKCON, Bangalore, and today feeds 18.7 lakh children every day. So food and feasting is a very, very important part of bhakti and ISKCON. And every festival in ISKCON ends with a sumptuous prasadam. In fact, Prabhupada, it is said that singing, dancing, we do a lot of singing, bhajans, kirtans, dancing, and philosophizing. We also discuss a lot of philosophy. Singing, dancing, philosophizing, and feasting. This is the world of Hare Krishna. This is how Srila Prabhupada described. And food is so important. Sometimes it is said that Prabhupada said, ours is a kitchen religion. And so you can understand how food is so important. And Prabhupada introduced restaurants in a temple. It's a very unique innovation at that time. In the 60s and the 70s, Prabhupada not only set up, especially in Western countries, a temple, and he also had a restaurant. Many of you may be familiar with Govinda's restaurant. Here in Bangalore, we have a restaurant called the Higher Taste restaurant. And so that has become an integral part of most temples in ISKCON, where we serve sanctified food. So food is very important, and I am so happy that there are food experts on this panel all around me, and to talk about secrets of ISKCON kitchen. I'm myself not any food expert. I know how to manage food more than do anything with food. So I'm also here.
So I completely agree with you. I've been a big fan of the Govinda restaurant at the Jew Hare Rama Hare Krishna temple, and it's spectacularly good food. I've also attended a lot of functions there, occasions, weddings, and the catering is done by the restaurant over there, and the food is great. On that note, I want to move to Sanjeev, who's been closely associated with Akshaya Patra, and you've also traveled all over the world raising funds for Akshaya Patra. So a little bit about the kind of food that is associated with ISKCON, the Hare Krishna temples, and then a little bit about Akshaya Patra as well.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kunal, and all the great panelists. Big namaste. I think what a great day to have everyone together like this around food, around celebration. And I think celebration is nothing but bringing people together. And I think for me, this is great celebration that we have everyone together. And on that, to have talk on food, that's even greater joy, because to me, what gives me great joy is not just cooking of food, not just smelling of food, not just eating, but discussion, conversations around food also give me great joy. And why does that happen? Probably that's all I know. Maybe I have to graduate to higher learning, but I think that's what I can say. I would say that as a fellow panelist here, I can say that I only know one aspect, which is probably just converting raw material to dishes, which is not very big. But there is a lot of thinking that goes besides that, and which is what I'm going to pick up today here. And we have great panelists here. So thank you for this opportunity. On food at ISKCON, I would say that thanks to Akshaya Patra, my interface with ISKCON has increased manyfold in recent years, and there are meetings that we have for Akshaya Patra, and since Akshaya Patra operates, the office is right next to or in the temple complex in Bangalore. So the day starts with the darshan and prasadam and the whole day. And while we are discussing whether it's snacks, whether it is lunch that's served, its whole part, there's a big, I would say, big part of that meeting for us, for Akshaya Patra, is the food itself. And it's simple food, but it's food that makes, and normally I would say when we are meeting and eating, especially for our council meetings that we have in Bangalore. I can tell you, while it's simple food, it's something which you remember. I normally go from Mumbai to Bangalore on a flight back. I'm always tempted that next time I'll actually ask that, please pack something for me, right? Because it's so tasty, it's so nice. So actually, we have our meeting tomorrow, but it's now going to be like this only. So there's no food. I'll have to cook here. Coming to food of Akshay Patra, since it's a part of midday meal program largely. So food is something which we have. There are few deliverables that are expected, which is the quantity, which is the quality, and those are the minimum standards that are there. And in that how many carbohydrates, what amount of protein, all of that is defined. But that's for normal anyone that would deliver. But when it comes to Akshay Patra, it goes not just 1, 2, 3, I think 10 steps ahead, and makes sure that food is not restricted to just minimum standards. It delivers much more than that. And how does it do that? There's a lot of thinking that goes into that. There's a lot of planning that goes into that. And there's a great team that's there, which is a highly motivated team. And the only thing that's kept in mind that when food is given to children, would they smile as soon as they look at that food? It's not just that whether eating and they're enjoying or not. I can tell you, I have been witness to this. I have I have done the whole 9 yards, I should say, that cooking of food and transporting that and going to the school. And I can tell you, as soon as that truck came into the premises of the school, and the whole school, the kids, the joy, they went came running towards the truck, and that is the joy that Akshay Patra brings to those school children. Specifically on food, it's tasty, delicious, nutritious food that is served hot in a very safe and hygienic way. And there is sweet dish that is given. There is rice or roti, or at times now we introduce some places idli also. And there are local specialities that are there. Sambar, there are many different recipes that are there, because it has to be fine-tuned to the specific taste of that region. So there's a lot of planning, and I can tell you that every time I go to such schools, I taste that, and it's absolutely delicious. And I think it's not just because I've been cooking all these years. The difference is that this food is how food, when you eat what your mom cooks, and it says ki maa ke haath ka khana best hota hai, because that's cooked with love. And that's exactly what Akshay Patra does. It cooks with love.
What a way to, Sanjeev, food that is not cooked with love doesn't taste good.
That's
and I'm
true.
so sure of it. I'm so sure of it. Love is an essential ingredient in all food. But whether we speak of Akshaya Patra or whether we speak of the food that is served at the ISKCON temple, I know it's Sattvic and whatever, and we'll come to that, but it's food that is good for your body. Isn't it? It's good food that is good for your body, which leads us straight to Rujuta. Rujuta, talk about a little bit of food which is good for your body, one. And the second thing I want to talk to you about is Krishna. Krishna, known for butter, known for ghee. You've done a whole book on ghee. So let's talk about food, generally food that is good for you, and then a little bit about ghee, which I love, including butter.
Awesome. I think it's wonderful that Prabhuji said that, ISKCON is almost like it's a kitchen religion. I think it's such a wonderful way to put it. And to really think of food as bhakti, I think that's a revolutionary thought for me, because I have always believed that the way we eat and the way we look at food is truly and insight into how we are treating ourselves, and I think if we all treat ourselves better, then we will be able to create a much better world. As far as Krishna goes, I feel that he was a hero in every sense, because long before any diet fad could come through, long before any big medical journal could say that fat is actually good for you, I think he intuitively knew about it. And we now know that makhan is something which has Wilson factor, and Wilson factor is something which keeps our bones strong. And the stronger bone mineral density you have, the smaller you tend to look in your size. So for everyone who wants to lose, yes, there are a dollop of makhan on your rotis and your ragi rotis and stuff. I think a ragi or a dosa and makhan, and your bones get stronger. You look slimmer. It is also something which actually helps you regulate the production of cholesterol. So, we are living in COVID times. We all know that people who are deficient in vitamin D are much more prone to COVID complications. But what we must also work at understanding is that without essential fats in our diet, we will never be able to assimilate adequate vitamin D. Eating a dollop of butter is actually a good way of eating essential fats, which will then give us adequate vitamin D. Ghee, makhan, even dahi, doodh, all of our panchamrits, good ways of getting vitamin B12 and vitamin D and staying strong in face of every infection. Otherwise, aajkal it's like the minute there is any kind of an infection, there's like, okay, immunity boosters, and every immunity booster is actually just coming out of a pill or a potion or a product, but it actually lies in our eating culture. I've also been a big fan of the Govinda restaurant, because I think it is probably the only time that eating out is sattvic. Otherwise, every time you eat out, you come back feeling guilty. But if you eat at Govinda, I think it's the only time that you come out feeling grateful. So I think food cooked with love and eaten with a sense of gratitude is all that one needs for a good body and mind balance.
That's great. Good body and mind balance. That's well put. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about Sattvic food. Anushruthi, I know you're an expert on Sattvic food. She and I did an episode several years ago on Sattvic food when I was doing a food show. But before we get there, I wanted to talk a little bit about temple food and the concept of prasadam or prasad. I've traveled to several temples around India, including the big Krishna temple in near Manipal, where on the wall of Krishna, outside the wall of the Krishna temple, the first masala dosa was actually invented, and or Jagannath Puri temple, the prasadam at Jagannath Puri temple. So, can you tell us a little bit about the food and prasadam that ISKCON is famous for, or generally prasadam or prasad?
Yes. So let me start by talking a little bit about temple food. India is home to thousands of temples, and temple food has been an intrinsic part of Indian culture. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, which means that even if you offer him just fruits, leaves, flowers, and water, he is happy. But devotees, out of love and affection for the Lord, they prepare a variety of dishes and offer it to him. And when food is offered this way, it becomes prasad. And actually, offering the tradition of offering food to the Lord in temples and in the homes of devotees across the world, it's a practice which has been in place for thousands of years. And also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, our Vedic literature, it is said that when food is offered to the Lord, it transcends sattva, rajo, and tamoguna, and it acquires shuddha sattva, which is pure spiritual energy. And that is the food which is served in ISKCON.
Fantastic. Now, when we talk about all this that you've spoken about, right, including prasadam, and you talk about temple food, Prabhuji, I want to ask you this. What about the new generation of people, the younger kids? Are you doing anything with the food at ISKCON to appeal to people who want to eat fast food and desserts and that kind of stuff, I don't want to sit on a banana leaf and eat sabzi, chapati, chawal. Is there something that you're doing for the newer generation?
Yeah, Kunal, that's an interesting point you have brought up. Yes, even when I remember coming to ISKCON from college, and the most important, more than the dal sabji, those kind of things, we would wait for, there was one American devotee, and she would make cakes which were offered to the Lord, and we would be waiting, we were few of us coming from the college, and we would be waiting to buy those cakes and have them. So actually, this is another very interesting thing that Srila Prabhupada did. Prabhupada was very expert in cultural adaptation of the various aspects of bhakti. Bhakti is about bhajans, kirtans, and chanting. And when Prabhupada went to different parts of the world, he encouraged devotees in those countries to use their own local musical sensibilities to glorify Krishna. Kirtana means glorification. So Prabhupada met George Harrison in the 1960s in London. And he said that, I come from a country where there is one Vedic literature, one of the Vedas, entirely dedicated to music. He was referring to the Sama Veda. And so he was, and he encouraged George to compose music from his own sensibilities. So in the same way, not only about music, Prabhupada also encouraged devotees from around the world to prepare meals of their culture. And so there were devotees, Western devotees, Italian devotees, European devotees, and they would make food of their own cultures. And as long as it meets a few temple standards, that it has to be vegetarian and a few things like that. But otherwise, Prabhupada encouraged not just traditional Indian temple food, but Prabhupada encouraged adaptations according to cultural needs. And so in our temple in Bangalore, Rujuta ji visited our temple, and it was wonderful that she even had she was able to taste some of the dishes in our restaurant. And I want all of you, Kunal, you must come next time, and there's a big feast waiting for you.
Yes. I will come.
And in our temple in Bangalore, we also have a bakery, and we have a baking section, and we make wonderful cakes and pastries and pizzas and all of that, and offered to Krishna. I'll just share one small anecdote that happened a few 1 or 2 years ago. There are many traditional temples in Bangalore, and some of the pujaris from those temples, they would come and they told me, in our temple, to our Srinivasa, we only offer, puliogre and curd rice and tamarind rice. That's a traditional food. But then we come to ISKCON whenever we want to have some cake and pizzas, because we know this is the right place to come. So people do, and this was an important aspect of ISKCON and Krishna consciousness, cultural adaptations. And so fast food, what the young people are looking for, and what people in future will want to, all of that is available, and that's another aspect of ISKCON cooking.
It also goes with the personality of Krishna, Lord Krishna, the most happening Indian deity, changing with the times, just unbelievably good. I must tell you, and only Sanjeev reminded me, my middle name is Sri Krishna. My father's name was Sri Krishna. So I'm now immediately connected. But getting back to food at Akshaya Patra and ISKCON, Sanjeev, you're a master of creating menus. I know you've helped with the menus at Akshaya Patra. What is? I mean, how do you do it? Is it all South Indian food? Is it North Indian food? how would you describe a standard menu at Akshay Patra, and what do you do to sort of evolve the menu as you go along? Because it's for children also. Children are eating healthy food at
Right.
midday meal. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So actually, as I said, that Akshay Patra is part of midday meal program. So there are guidelines that the government provides, and that's the minimum guideline on food, that this is what. And as part of the program, they also give some grains. So those grains are used in the program. But a typical meal, if I were to say from government side, the minimum requirement is that this much carbohydrate and this much protein, and that's the I would say end of it, which can come from rice and dal. But at Akshay Patra, over the years, the effort has been increasing dishes as we go along, and so places where let's say rice is the primary staple, so their rice is cooked with the rice and a vegetable, and at least once a week there is a sweet dish, and that day is not revealed that when that sweet dish will be distributed, because otherwise more students will come just on that day because there is sweet dish. Don't we all love sweets, right? But there are, since Akshay Patra is such a big organization and it's spread all over India, different states, different kitchens. So they are local. Like Prabhu talked about adaptation. That adaptation goes in Akshay Patra also. So there are in Karnataka, there are a few kitchens where there was demand of idli, and idli was started. And I remember this was last year where Prabhu from Ahmedabad, the kitchen, he says, oh, our schools, they have come to know that Akshay Patra is also making idli in some kitchens. So they are demanding idli. And in Ahmedabad kitchen, we don't have those arrangements. So there are so northern part of India, let's say, where chapati is more required. So in Vrindavan, you would see a chapati maker which can make 1 lakh chapatis in an hour. And there would be dal, there would be vegetables, and once a week there would be something sweet. So it's a wholesome, nutritious meal that is cooked daily with daily fresh ingredients and served hot. And I can tell you, it may sound like just 3 simple things, but it takes a lot, because some of the schools where the food has to go, the food has to travel. So it has to remain fresh, it has to remain hot. And that's when the proof of the pudding is, when they get that food, they want more. And food is always in plenty at Akshay Patra. It's if there are some kids who want to carry food for their siblings, it is something that they can easily do. And I remember that because of this COVID, Akshay Patra schools have been closed, right? But Akshay Patra did not shut down. Prabhu can give more up-to-date details on how many, I think on last count, I know it was upwards of some 75 million meals had been served during these time by Akshay Patra. So I don't think in my food career, which has spanned over 30 decades, that I have come across anything as inspirational as Akshay Patra. It's literally mind-blowing.
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, just the idea of so many meals on a daily basis, every day, and food that is being thought through, food that has a philosophy, and food that's good for you. Rujuta, if you've eaten at Govinda, you've visited Akshay Patra, and you're also your expertise is to guide people into eating a good meal. If I tell you, between Govinda and I mean, you can't go to Govinda every day to eat a good meal. But if you're at home and you want to eat a good daily, you want to eat a good, solid, complete, and healthy meal, what is the meal you would suggest? As in, with all the ingredients, including dessert. Huh?
Well, I'm also even at higher taste, so I thought you were going to throw a fast one at me and say which one is better, higher taste or Hare Krishna. You know,
I
so
will come to that. I will come to that also. No, but if you want to say this is what you should do on a daily basis for a good body and good health, what is that meal that you would recommend
well, I really
or
think,
advise?
you know, what Prabhuji said, that even the strength of ISKCON lies in the fact that even bhakti is adapted to one's culture. And also, as Sanjeev ji said, that at every Akshaya Patra kitchen, they actually have different meals. So if it is idli in Bangalore, it is probably a chapati in North India and a thepla in Gujarat. So I think the goodness about our food is that one just needs to cook local, seasonal, traditional food with love, sincerity, and attention. And if we are able to get our kitchens gender neutral, then I think everything that we cook will be the most wholesome meal ever. You know, so even something as small as roti, sabzi, dal, rice, or अगर कुछ dessert के लिए नहीं है तो just some jaggery and ghee to go with it is a complete meal, as long as the whole family takes part in it together and no one is on their gadgets or watching TV together, you know, while eating. So, you know, we say that there are three S's of good food. You sit down and eat. You eat without any kind of gadget. So, you know, with all your senses, if you're able to eat. And the third thing is if you eat it slowly, you know, every bite, if you're able to relish it, I think that's when you do true justice to food. Otherwise, it's just you know, shoving food down your throat and getting on with your life. We are not I grabbed my coffee and picked up my sandwich culture. You know, we are a sit down and eat culture. In fact, in Marathi, we have a term, it's called Saukash Jira. You know, take all the
Saukas,
time.
saukas.
Yes, take all the time
Yeah.
on earth and eat. And I think if we just begin to eat like that, then we won't have one standard of a good meal. We will have thousands of good meals, you know, each one diverse, each one equally rich. It's like the way you call out to God or to call out to your mother, you know, no matter what name you call her with, you're calling out to purity, to nurture, to love. It's the exact same relationship that one has with food.
Yeah, no, it's a great point you made. You know, the idea, the culture of sitting down at the table and with the family at a designated hour instead of everybody eating at their own time together. Um, I do it. I visit a lot of families. My family, at least 3 to 5, because I live alone. So I go. Meal times is when I decide I want somebody with me. And the joy of just sitting together and eating is unbeatable. Unbeatable. आणि खरंच सावकाश जेवा, सावकाश
Yes.
नीट सावकाश जेवण is great. Uh, Anushruti, we've spoken about all kind of all the great stuff that ISKCON is doing. But I want you to talk a little bit because you're involved with ISKCON. I want you to talk about the food, the actual food at ISKCON, and uh, and the food that Prabhupada cooked himself, because I believe he was a great cook, the founder of the consciousness. His story is about his cooking and the food at ISKCON and how it is related.
So actually, ISKCON is a multilingual and multicultural community of devotees. So all the devotees, they bring in their recipes from their regions, and the menu cooked in the temple kitchens is customized accordingly. And this also, in a way, promotes regional diversity and also, preserves our culture. And Rujuta ji is doing a lot of work in this area, so I really, appreciate her for that. And way back in the 90s, when eggless cakes were literally unheard of, I got to taste the best cakes made by senior Matajis in the ISKCON temple. And even, a thali made with all traditional recipes. I remember tasting a traditional Kerala thali, And I remember tasting a lot of different dishes from different communities. And the food at the higher taste is, again, it's a blend of Vedic wisdom and modern ways of cooking. So you have international dishes like the pomodoro soup, and you have bruschetta, and you also have traditional South Indian dishes like Prasadam and more kolamba, and all our North Indian dishes like kebabs, paneer tikkas, rotis, and of course I cannot forget the desserts. It's really wonderful. You must go there to see with the food, Kunal. And yes. And coming to Prabhupada, who was the founder Acharya of ISKCON, in his initial days, like Chanchalapathi Prabhu said, he used to cook a lot for the devotees, and it was one of the ways for him to attract devotees, into the fold. And he made the perfect gulab jamuns, and there are transcripts wherein he's talking about getting fresh pudina leaves to make a mint chutney, and then he's talking about making Bengali pushpana royal rice. He literally taught his disciples how to cook, and he's a pioneer in a way. He made a lot of efforts in establishing farming communities, and he was a big advocate of using fresh, local, and seasonal ingredients.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to turn this conversation a little serious now with Prabhuji. We're talking about the earth. Our earth is at the moment in great trouble, and one of the reasons is our practices. Our practices, whether they're agricultural practices or other industrial practices, are in a way destroying the earth. So, what could you talk a little bit about chemical-free agriculture, about about pesticides, fertilizers, and cow-based agriculture? A little bit about that. Enlighten us a little bit on that.
Yeah, surely, Kunal, as Anushruthi just now mentioned, that's another important area that ISKCON is working. Prabhupada wanted us to develop farm communities and to inspire us about natural living. Prabhupada used an expression, simple living and high thinking. And he wanted to promote simple living and high thinking. And Prabhupada lamented that in modern day we have very, very complex living and very, very simple thinking as it comes to, not very philosophical, not very lofty thoughts, but very base animal-like kind of a thinking. So this is another important area that ISKCON is involved in, organic farming, and as you pointed out, cow-based agriculture. It's very interesting that unnecessarily we are pumping a lot of chemicals into the earth, and as a result, that all that chemical comes back onto our table, and that's what our food is made of. It is not at all healthy, and all kinds of diseases, the newer forms of diseases that are coming up, are all traced to these kind of chemicals which are finally entering into the food chain. So it's very lamentable, and it was Prabhupada's plan that we must set up farm communities and demonstrate to people what it is like, have fresh food, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, and freshly cooked. And as Rujuta ji said, we all sit together, and it is cooked with love and care and attention, as she said, and sit together and honor that. In fact, even we don't use the expression eat food in ISKCON. We say honor food, because it's a way of honoring it. So food is seen very respectfully. And that's another, that whole Leela of Govardhan Giridhari, Govardhan, Krishna suggested that let's make all the food that has been cooked for Yagna, Indra Yagna, let's offer it to Govardhan, let's make a Annakut, Annakut, the festival has become preparing varieties of food and making it in the form of a mountain and offering that to Krishna. So, Annakut, you asked me earlier about Krishna and his fondness for food. And, you know, the greatest devotee of Krishna is Radharani. And it is said that Radharani, one of the ways she conquers Krishna's heart is by cooking delicious food. And it is said that Radharani is such an expert cook. She knows unlimited varieties of cooking, and every day she cooks something new, and she has been doing that since time immemorial, and she never repeats the same preparation. You know, that's the infinite variegatedness of the cooking of Radharani. And all of these are very, very important aspects and of food, and delicious food, fresh food, local food, and cooked without chemicals. And we have many farms around the world, around the country. And I have seen some of the mangoes which comes from our farms where no chemical has been used last 20 years. And those mangoes are so delicious and so wonderful. And so these are all very important practices. And cow can produce all of the manure and all of the fertilizers and the weedicide. And so I don't know why unfortunately, this practice has come about. I was recently in Bangalore, a coastal town in Karnataka, because, you know, they were also our donors of our Akshaya Patra. And there's a Bangalore chemical fertilizer. And I saw about 100 trucks outside waiting to fill all the chemicals and to distribute. You know, I was thinking, we have a farm in Jaipur, and it's actually not a farm, it's not a goshala, it's actually a cow shelter where we have, you know, the stray cows in our country. It's very sad. We see them, cows, you know, eating from the trash in the city. And to gather those cows and put them in a shelter, and we have 17,000 cows in one place in Jaipur, just outside Jaipur. And I was thinking one day we must have hundreds of trucks just waiting outside our goshala to fill up bags of natural fertilizers, distribute manure and distribute that, so that we don't unnecessarily pollute the earth like we are doing now. And you know, yes, these are all very important aspects of food and food production.
No, absolutely. I mean, the cow and its byproducts, if I may call it that, besides the milk, the manure, you go to the village, the manure is used for fertilizer. It's used for Zamin Sarwala, means to make the ground. They make cakes out of it, use it for fire and hay, mix it, you know. So it's just an unbelievable amount of source of energy, food, everything, really. You know, Sanjeev, you've also won all our hearts by the food that you cook, like Radha Rani did to Krishna. Sanjeev has been cooking for us for so long, and he's won so many hearts, Tell us about the importance of food with spirituality. You know, we associate food with spirituality all the time. There is not a single festival that goes by which is not associated to some food of the other. You say Diwali ho to ye khayenge, Holi ho to ye khayenge. What is this lovely association that we have with spirituality and with food?
Right. Yeah, I think it's a very interesting thing that our expression of love comes very well with food. I think there are many things where, especially if we look at India, we are not very expressive by nature. We are shy people as a race. We are very shy. That's why we are not very aggressive. So our expression of joy, our expression of love, our expression of celebration is food. And that's why anything that's we have seen over the years, whether a child is born or whether there is a festivity that's there, then the best way, and I think everyone who manages kitchen, and I love Rujita's word on kitchens being gender neutral. I think that's a best take today. I must compliment you for thinking like that. Fantastic. I think anyone who's in the kitchen, I think it's their expression when they're cooking. Everyone is like Radharani, who is trying to please, and that when we say please, I think we all know we are what we eat, and when we do that with love, when we do that to please, it could be Shri Krishna who we are pleasing. It could be Krishnas who are our kids at our house who we want to please. Could be our friends. It could be anyone that we want to please. And when we are doing that with that kind of positivity for anyone, including ourselves also, I think that brings a lot of positivity, and that's what the role of spirituality is. A lot of positive energy, and spirituality is nothing but negating all the wrongs that we have created over the years, and also creating a positive aura on this earth. So I think food adds that element that we are very comfortable with. That interface, we are very used to it, and that expression comes naturally to us. And I would say that we are so lucky that it comes naturally to us. It just we need to direct now, and we have forgotten. I'll tell you a small thing, and we talked about local seasonal. I think there's a lot of talk about different millets, things that we grow. We talked about nashi, ragi, and see, as when we were growing up, jawar, bajra, all these things were something that we were used to, we were eating. And suddenly, as I was growing up, I saw that those things we started feeding animals with. Animals got lucky, and we got unlucky. I can tell you, I just checked right now. If you search what is sorghum in Hindi, it's called chara. Chara is what you feed animals. This is today. This is what we need to change. This is, I think, this infliction is what we are causing to ourselves. We need, this injury is what we need to make sure that we stay away from, and we educate more people that food is part of spirituality. What we do at home, we treat it with that respect, and in festive we enhance that. I think we take a notch up, because we are trying to do everything better. We dress better, we think better, we smile better, we greet better, and we cook better, and it's higher spirituality, and that's what the celebration is all about.
Well said. Festival is when we become better, is a great way of putting it. Yeah, but festival is also a time when we overeat. Festival is a time where where no festival goes without overeating. So there must be a way of celebrating festivals without it being bad for health, Rujuta. What do you want to say about festivals? So you take ladu, basundi, or whatever festival food that we say, and how do we sort of not go bananas and crazy about it?
I think with mere education that that eating more than regular is not the exact same as overeating, So yeah, because when it's Krishna Janma, you're going to sing more bhajans. That doesn't mean that you overdid the bhajans, as compared to. So there are some days, so there are some days where your appetite actually enhances itself. So when you're in the company of people you love, when food has already been offered as prasad, when it's a festival, your digestive abilities are better than on days when you have just worked on your laptop from 9 to 6 and written nasty emails to people and blocked a few others on Twitter. So I think as long as you eat with an open heart, chew slowly, yeah, awesome, and you're grateful for the food on your plate, you are absolutely allowed for your appetite to fluctuate, on a daily basis. That is what it does, which is why if you ever count the amount that you have eaten and you have a grandmother around, then she will scold you for it and tell you, that you should never count what you're eating. Just eat as per your need and don't count how much you're eating, because food is a blessing from God. It's a form of bhakti, and I think Sanjeev ji put it so beautifully that it's an interface between maybe soil and the soul. I mean, if we are actually able to look at food as something which comes from the soil and goes all the way towards our soul, so we should just be grateful for it. Eat food that jitna pacha sakte ho utna hi khao, and as long as we are able to tell where to stop eating, and every human being is born with the ability to self-terminate the act of eating. It's only the weight loss industry which has taught us to be guilty about food versus grateful about food. So I think we should know that every day we are differently hungry. We know that we should be grateful for the food that we have on our plate, and chew our food slowly. I think if we just do those things, we are no longer in the danger of overeating.
I have to agree with you about being grateful for food, and I have in my life forever been grateful for food. I'm not joking right now. Even in this lockdown, even in these days when we are basically we're all depressed. A lot of us have been depressed because of being locked up in this place. Food has given me personally extreme joy. I've also had a lot of people around me, as in from my building, family members, people living down the road, who've sent me food, and I always look at it as my earnings of love. This is all the love that I've earned. It's not love because I did a show on television. It's love because I've met people, we interact with people, they appreciate it's a great joy feeding people sometimes. And I think I have, when you see the smile on somebody, I love sitting at a table watching people enjoy their food and feeding people food, and it's such a good feeling. So everything around food is there's just a good vibe about food, which I think which probably makes it really healthy and nice. But technically, Anushruthi, if I was to ask you, it's a subject that we've been talking about slightly throughout this whole conversation, which is Sattvic food. So you've got Sattvic, Tamasic, Rajasic. In a nutshell, what is the philosophy of Sattvic food? What are the advantages vis-a-vis the other two food categories, Rajasic, Tamasic? In short, if you could just give us the crux of all this.
Yeah, so please give me a chance to elaborate a little on the concept of Sattvic food. So in Ayurveda, food is classified into Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic categories. And according to Bhagavad Gita, Sattvic food has life-giving properties which promotes health and joy. And Sattvic food is always freshly prepared with pure ingredients, which increases prana or positive energy. Like Sanjeev Kapoor ji spoke a lot about positive energy. And so Sattvic food is full of life-giving properties and prana. And also, Sattvic food promotes three important vitality factors in the human body, which is Ojas, responsible for our overall immunity and health, Tejas, which is responsible for our intelligence, and Prana, which is positive energy. And Sattvic food is basically food cooked without meat, fish, eggs, onions, garlic, alcohol, and even caffeine. Yeah, and I would like to say that using pulses, grains, fresh fruits, dried fruits, vegetables, milk and milk products, you can prepare hundreds and thousands of dishes, applying the principles of Sattvic food.
Oh, great. In a nutshell, you've just told me what I should not be eating. All the bad food that I should not be eating, you've just told me. Okay, I'm going to start slowly wrapping this up. And then, so I'm going to start with you, Prabhuji, and then I'm going to end with you. Okay. So this is my sort of last serious question, if I may call it that. Just a little bit about food for the soul, whether it's pure Sattvic or not. What is the relationship between food and our soul, as per the consciousness?
Okay. at a fundamental level, food is provided by, it is a gift of God. And to acknowledge that, food comes from the earth, and you need sunlight, you need air, you need water. All of these are gifts of God. Man cannot make any of these things. And hence, food, which is a transformation of all of this, is a gift of God. And the very fact that acknowledging that it is God's gift is an aspect of spirituality. And without food, we cannot live. Every few hours, we need to have some food. And so you see that you are depending on God. You are infused with the energy of God. And without God, you cannot live. So this aspect of recognition and acknowledging, like we teach our children, when somebody comes and gives you something very nice, what do you say? You say thank you and receive it. In the same way, this aspect of acknowledging that God is the provider of food is itself an important aspect of spirituality. And now you think about sharing that food with others. All of these are important aspects of spirituality. And when food is cooked carefully, purely, with an idea that I must please God and I must please God's devotees. That's the idea. Usually when we cook, the thinking is I must enjoy. When we are cooking for God, it is not that I must enjoy. I want to make God enjoy this food, and God's devotees, to whom all of this will be distributed, they should enjoy that. This thinking itself, that consciousness, is another interesting thing that goes into the food. Like we have just now heard in different ways, love, attention, and it is the consciousness of the cook that goes in mystically into the food. And when that food is shared, is offered to God, and as an acknowledgement that, how God has provided all these things, and that is distributed, it is a sense of, that is the one which gives spiritual touch to it. In fact, Krishna says that yajna shishthashano santo muchyante sarva kilbhishai bunjate tva agham papam e pachanti atma karana. One should eat the remnants of a sacrifice, and that act of cooking food and offering to God, and it is going to be offered to the devotees of God, it's going to be offered to everybody, that is itself an act of sacrifice. It's a yajna. And that yajna shishta is what we offer and we relish and we honor as prasadam. And so that is how it touches the soul and elevates the soul. And when the soul is elevated, we will be enlightened, and we will develop higher tastes, because without pleasure we cannot get away in this world. As human beings, as every living entity is pleasure seeking. So we must learn to seek higher forms of pleasure. With spiritual education, we will look for higher pleasures. And then it is easy to give up lower pleasures. So food, spirituality, and developing higher thoughts and higher taste, all these are very, very important aspects. And food can promote that.
And nothing gives more pleasure than giving, sharing, and doing for somebody else. I think you've actually hit the nail upon it. I mean, what you said was full of philosophy. I'm just trying to put it really simply. But doing for yourself is one thing, but the joy of doing for others is divine, if I may call it that. And so as we start ending this conversation, I think I'm just going to ask the same question to all the panelists again. Your favorite food and Krishna story, or just your favorite Krishna story. I mean, there are so many stories. Sanjeev, anything that comes to your mind about, after all, it is, we are talking about the ISKCON kitchen. It is about Krishna consciousness. So any story that you have?
Sure. So I would say that my best memory, should I say? So as a child, I would say that we didn't have anything plenty. Everything was there, but nothing was in plenty. And everything, I would say, when it came to food, especially milk and milk products, they were rationed a little bit. And so I used to love milk, and I still do. I would love malai, and I would love makhan. And in those situations when everything is rationed and you are a kid and you want to have more, then there would be times that there's a favorite story. So how you see when milk is boiled and there is skin that forms, right? And when you have to have more, then without knowing anyone, when you do that, then everyone would come to know. So the best way to do that was that in that patila, top, whatever is there, milk was boiled. If I took have as a kid, a very small kid, put a straw on the side and have it, so that the top of that milk, that skin, that does not get. And the only justification in my mind would be that Bhagwan Shri Krishna also used to love that, and he would do that, and there would be sometimes there would be some malai makhan that would be there. So as a child, I have distinct memories of that, and I will never forget that I would justify that whatever wrong in some sense it's wrong, but you justify that and you say, okay, blame it on the God.
What a wonderful story this is, and how true. Rujuta, anything you want to share? Little story, little fun.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but right now when Sanjeev ji was sharing the story, I also thought of how Yashoda Maya would take a stick and beat her son, So I wonder if he My favorite story has to be the story of Krishna and Sudama. That even when, the Lord is the king, what he really enjoys the most is a gift from his old friend, which is nothing but dahi and pohe. So I think dahi and pohe as a gift from Sudama to the Lord is a story that always inspires me, because it is all about simplicity and sincerity. And anything that is offered with simplicity and sincerity in one's heart is always accepted by the Lord as the greatest offering of all. I think if we can all just remember that, even in the work that we do, I think we will live a much better life than what we currently do.
Fantastic. I mean, I've actually forgotten about Krishna, Sudama, and the poem story. But it's food, and it's a relationship between two friends and the food that they shared.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like Sanjeev ji was saying, that it's all about conversations. So one can only imagine what kind of conversations they had over dahi and poha, of the old times, or times in the future. So yeah.
Anushruthi, how about you?
Yes. I have so many favorite stories of Lord Krishna. In fact, since this is Janmashtami, Prabhupada has written an entire book on Krishna. And those of you, who are interested to know about Krishna and his pastimes must read that book, because that book was my favorite book as a child. And in one of the stories coming to my mind is about how Krishna and Balaram used to wake up early in the morning at dawn. And there's a beautiful description about how peacocks used to sing and how they used to go to the mountain and find a spot, and they used to tend to their calves, and their mothers used to pack delicious food for them. And Krishna and Balaram are sitting and sharing that beautiful food with all their friends. And that story is one of my favorites.
Superb. And to end this wonderful discussion, Prabhuji, your story, your favorite story. I know you have probably several, but one that is apt for today's discussion.
Yeah. Krishna, we have heard that how Krishna was very naughty, and Mother Yashoda was churning the butter, and milk was boiling. So Krishna, Mother Yashoda put Krishna aside and then rushed to attend to the milk. And so the question came up. It's a little bit of a philosophical question. Why did Mother Yashoda put Krishna down and attend to the boiling of the milk? She should have been, attending to Krishna after all. And then Krishna gets very angry and he goes and breaks the pot of butter which she was churning and so on. And it is said that Mother Yashoda was so much concerned about Krishna and Krishna, that he gets the right food, right milk, and so on. In fact, it is said, the Acharyas have written commentary on that. That particular day, the milk which was boiling was from one particular cow, Surabhi, which was the favorite cow of Krishna. And Surabhi used to give very, very sweet, delicious milk. And that milk was overflowing. And so, out of concern for Krishna, she put Krishna aside, rushed there to save that, because when you are with Krishna, you can be enjoying the company of Krishna. But she was willing to sacrifice that and rush because she wanted Krishna to enjoy that milk. And it was always pleasure of Krishna that she was focused on. So, and that's why she rushed there and saved that milk, because she wanted Krishna to enjoy and relish that very sweet, delicious milk. So,
what a sweet story! What a sweet story! Can I tell you my favorite story about Krishna? It's got to food, food also. It's and I may be slightly sort of inaccurate, but please correct me if I'm wrong. It's about Krishna's mouth full of food. Whether he was eating mud or whether it was actually food, his mother saying, "Open your mouth, open your mouth, open your mouth." And finally he opens his mouth, and his mother looks inside his mouth, and she saw the whole universe inside his mouth. That is my favorite food story with Sri Krishna. Anyway, I think we've had quite a nice discussion. Actually, it's been meaningful. I think it's been informative, yet it's been casual, and I think we have had all a good time. Just to sort of sum up our evening today. I think we've learned about responsible food practices. Today we've spoken about that. We've also spoken about how food is spiritual, the spirituality about food, and the wonderful work that ISKCON is doing in the area of food beyond the area of spirituality. I'd like to thank everybody. Prabhuji, thank you very much for hosting this evening and being here. Sanjeev, hope to see you again. Lots of food to be eaten from your hands. And Anushruthi, lot to learn from you. And Rujuta, I'll call you and make an appointment, okay? I need a little nutrition advice, that's why. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody, everybody, happy Janmashtami to everybody. And may you all be blessed and celebrate this day with great joy and happiness and lots of food.